If you look at the world map, hardly any two countries appear so twin like Yemen and Oman. These two countries located on the southern side of Arabian Peninsula are not only similar in shape and size, but their geographies and natural resources are also almost similar. Both countries have almost the same amount of oil and gas reserves, and both the countries are two very important choke points of the world. Oman is right on the edge of the Strait of Hormuz, and all the oil and gas coming from the Persian Gulf passes through the Gulf of Oman here and goes to the rest of the world. Similarly, Yemen is right next to the Bab-Mandeb Strait. It is a point from where 80% trade between Asia and Europe passes. This is the shortest route to connect Europe and Asia, so both these countries are at very important geopolitical locations. Similarly, Arabs live in both the countries, whose culture and language are almost similar. Sunni Muslims live in large numbers in both the countries. In Yemen, there are also Zaydi Shias who currently have control over Yemen, but they are few in comparison to the Sunnis. Similarly, in Oman, 45% of the population are from the Abadi sect, while the remaining 45% of the population is Sunni, and only 5% are Shia Muslims. But ethnically, both these countries are Arabs. But if we look at the economic situation of these two countries, there is a huge difference. On one side, there is Oman, which is one of the most developed economies of the Middle East, where the Human Development Index is 0.82. Remember that the Human Development Index is measured on the scale of 0 to 1, 1 being the highest and 0 obviously being the lowest. And this index tells the happiness of the people of any country. The Human Development Index of Yemen is only 0.42, and its GDP per capita is 9th lowest in the world. The Human Development Index of Yemen is another neighbor. Saudi Arabia is 0.87. So why is a country which has such a rich country in its neighborhood in this condition? 82% of its population is suffering from extreme poverty. They do not even have food, education, and basic healthcare facilities. And for the last 60 years, this country has been suffering. Since 2014, there has been a civil war in the country in which hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives, and thousands have left Yemen. Today's Yemen is a country in sense of geographical boundaries, but within these geographical boundaries, Yemen is divided into many groups and sects which are being backed by different countries. On one side are the Houthis who have most control over Yemen. They have control over big cities and have the full support of Iran. Similarly, these white areas on the center and southern side of Yemen are those where Al-Qaeda has control. The red highlighted areas are those where other Sunni groups have control, which are backed by Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And this yellow highlighted area is under the control of the Southern Transitional Council, who want to separate southern Yemen from the rest of Yemen. Yemen is completely divided. But how did Yemen reach this situation? Despite having the same geography and natural resources as Oman, why is it so far behind it? Behind these differences between Yemen and Oman, the history of these two countries, geography and leadership, has a big role to play. In the history of both countries, they were under the control of non-Arab powers in the 16th century. In 1519, the Ottoman Empire captured all of northern Yemen. Yemen remained under the control of the Ottoman Empire for the next 400 years until the end of the World War I. On the other hand, the Portuguese Empire captured Oman in 1507 and made it its colony. But the Portuguese Empire had this control over Oman only for the next 100 years. The Omani people united together and fought against the Portuguese Empire, forcing them to flee in 1650. The control of Muscat was taken back from them, and from here, the Omani Sultanate started. Using the Portuguese sea trade experience, they spread a network of trade in the entire Indian Ocean. The entire trade from today's Iran to Pakistan, India, and Eastern Africa was carried out by the Omani Sultanate. The entire area from Muscat to Zanzibar in Africa was under the control of Oman. It was considered a part of the Omani Empire. Then it ended in 1872, and in the same year, Oman came under protection of British. In return, Oman given them the part in their resources. In 1951, Oman got freedom from British colonial control. After this, the sultans who came to Oman were very ultra-conservative. So much so that they literally banned all technological development in Oman, meaning they were strict to such an extent that you could not talk in public for more than 15 minutes. Couldn't wear sunglasses. This is the reason why unrest started increasing among the people and Sultan's popularity started falling. This was the time when Arab's oil industry was booming and the whole of Europe was dependent on this oil. and the British did not want that there should be any instability, and that a country like Oman, which is in such a geopolitically important place, should go out of their hands. That is why in 1970, the British instigated the Sultan's son, Qaboos bin Said, to revolt against his own father. And on 23 July 1970, the Sultan's own son overthrew his government, but this was proved to be very lucky for Oman. Sultan Qaboos was an extremely powerful administrator. Sultan Qaboos was not that democratic, but he was no less than a messiah for his people. He completely revolutionized Oman and Omani society in the next few years. When he became Sultan in 1970, there were only 3 schools, 19 hospitals, and only 10 kilometers of paved roads in Oman. In the next just 15 years, Sultan Qaboos transformed Oman. By 1985, 500 schools, 100 hospitals, and 3,000 kilometers of paved roads had been built in Oman. Along with this, Sultan Qaboos banned slavery in Oman and gave voting rights to women so that they could elect members of Majlis Shura and Municipal Council. Sultan Qaboos started spending literally all the money coming from oil for the welfare of his people. Sultan Qaboos also introduced a policy of Omanization, according to which it was mandatory for foreign companies coming to Oman to extract oil and gas to hire local Omani workers and train them so that gradually the Omani workers could become trained, so that Oman's dependence on foreign labor and companies should end. Oman's standard of living started going up. And not only this, the Sultan realized that very soon the world will find alternatives to oil, and Oman should also have its alternatives. To solve this, Oman also started promoting tourism. In 2023 alone, around 40 lakh tourists came to Oman, and they generated economic activity worth billions of dollars. Apart from this, full religious freedom has been given in Oman. Whether one is Shia, Sunni, or Ibadi, everyone has complete freedom for their religion. Due to tolerance, Oman also plays the role of mediator in international politics. Oman also facilitated the peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Sultan Qaboos tried hard to get peace agreements even between Israel and Iran. In 2015, a nuclear deal between Iran and America was also done because of Oman. Oman has till now been completely neutral in all the conflicts taking place in the Middle East, be it Iran or Iraq war. Be it war between Houthis and Saudi or boycott of Qatar, it is due to Oman's neutrality. It has become the Switzerland of Middle East. All the peace deals in the Middle East happen only through Oman. On one hand, there's a story of progress and success, but in Oman's neighborhood, Yemen is a completely different story. Till now we have seen in this video that Yemen was under the control of the Ottoman Empire from the 16th century till the end of World War II. But here it is very important to mention a geographical feature of Yemen. A fact which has historically had a huge impact, and that fact is this mountain range of Yemen. This is the entire area from where the Zaydi Shia movement started in Yemen. These people were cut off from the outside world because of these mountains. And that is why these were very conservative, compared to the people living in the coastal areas. This is exactly the same as in all the areas along the coastal strip of Saudi Arabia, such as Mecca, Medina, and Jeddah. People were more open-minded than those living in cities in interior Saudi Arabia, such as Riyadh. Because the coastal areas are connected by trade routes, and hence, the people living here interact with the rest of the world. And when there is interaction, then obviously their exposure and tolerance is more than other people. A similar scenario was in Yemen also. These Zaydi Shias had been fighting against the Ottoman Empire for 400 years. And when the Ottoman Empire ended after the World War II in 1918, they got an opportunity in this power vacuum. And this group captured the entire northern Yemen and established its control here, which was known as Mutawakkilate Kingdom. This group later formed an Houthi movement, which we know very well today. After World War I, the situation was that northern Yemen was under the control of this Zaydi group, while southern Yemen was under the control of the British. Zaydi Shias were led by Imam Yahya, who was considered a very strict and intolerant king. Historically, it is known that Imam Yahya was very strict towards other religious groups, such as Sunni, Christians, or Jews, due to which in northern Yemen there was a lot of anger among the people against the Imam. Now there is a very interesting point from which you will come to know that this religion and country card is only to play with the sentiments of people. For the top level and elite people, it's their benefit which matters. In 1962, Sunni military commanders in northern Yemen rebelled against the Zaydi regime and through a military coup, removed the Imam and created Arab nationalists' government. It was not an ordinary coup. It was a huge proxy war in which Egypt was supporting the Arab Nationalist Party, while Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries were backing the Shia Zaidi king. Egypt also wanted an Egyptian-style nationalist government in Yemen, while Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries were afraid that if the monarchy ended in Yemen, then tomorrow this revolution would take place in their countries. And that is why Saudi Arabia and the rest of Arabia was supporting the Zaidi king. This is so interesting. Saudi Arabs, who are the biggest opponents of the Shia movement, were supporting the Shia king in northern Yemen. As a result of these proxies, a bloody civil war started in northern Yemen, which continued for the next 8 years and killed around 200,000 people. This civil war finally ended in 1970 when the Egypt-backed Nationalist Party won and the Zaidi group was ousted from power. But when in northern Yemen, civil war was going on that time in southern Yemen, another revolution group was rising up and fighting against the British present here. And in 1967, it drove out the British from here and took control of the entire southern Yemen. The name of this group was National Liberation Front. In 1970, Yemen had divided into two parts. The north was controlled by Egypt-backed Arab nationalists, while the south was controlled by a group inspired by a revolutionary communist ideology, which wanted freedom from northern Yemen. This was the time when a new proxy war started in Yemen. America started backing the Arab nationalist government of northern Yemen, while the Soviet Union started supporting the communist group of southern Yemen because it was probably the only region in the entire Middle East where there was support for communism. On the other side, there were all the Arab kingdoms which were very upset over the defeat of the Zaidi king, but they were even more upset with the communist group of southern Yemen, because the communist idea was alive and they were very much against the monarchy. That is why the Arab kingdoms started supporting northern Yemen, even though they did not want to. There was a constant dilemma between North and South Yemen for the next 8 years. And then finally in 1979, on the request of the Arab League, both the leaders of the two sides made a peace agreement and announced the unification of Yemen. But it took 10 years for all this to happen, and finally in 1990, North and South Yemen gathered together, and the Republic of Yemen came into existence on the world map, and Ali Abdullah Saleh became the first president of the Republic of Yemen. Abdullah Saleh was the president of Yemen from 1990 to 2012, and he proved to be the most corrupt president not only in the history of Yemen, but in the history of entire Arabia. According to a 2012 UN report, Saleh destroyed Yemen during his 22-year rule. He stole $2 billion every year from Yemen's oil subsidy program and made assets from them in Western countries for his family. On one hand, Sultan Qaboos was using all the money from Oman's oil on his people, while on the other hand, Abdullah Saleh was killing rights of Yemenis with both hands. Not just corruption, Saleh also committed many other mistakes. First of all, when Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait, Saleh supported Saddam politically, although he knew that Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries were against Saddam. Saudi Arabia was so angry at Saleh's action that when Iraq lost the war, Saudi Arabia stopped giving billions of dollars to Yemen. Not only this, but also deported 800,000 Yemeni workers working in Saudi Arabia back to Yemen. Both these actions hurt the Yemeni economy. Yemen was just recovering from this. And then in 1994, southern Yemen rebelled against Saleh's rule. Saleh gave space to Al-Qaeda in Yemen to fight these rebels, but the consequences of this destroyed the Yemen in later years. Now different groups were fighting among themselves in Yemen. In the south there were communists, in the center there was Al-Qaeda, while in the north there were Arab nationals and Zaidis Shia. Now it was a time bomb, which could burst at any time, and the same happened. The hatred among the people against Saleh's government increased, and the lava that was cooking among the people burst in 2011 in Arab Springs as well as in Yemen. This bloody movement overthrew Abdullah Saleh's government. All groups were now fighting to take control of Yemen. Zaidi Shias on the northern side, now with the backing of Iran, had become very powerful, and their new name was Houthi. Houthis were fighting with Saleh's government on one hand, and on another hand, they were fighting with Al-Qaeda, and on the other side, Sunni groups of the south. The climax of this fight was in 2014, when Houthis defeated Saleh's supporter and captured Yemen's capital Sana'a, and also took control of Yemen's government, and from here again the bloody civil war started in Yemen, which continues till date. Today, Yemen has become the battleground of world powers. Iran, Saudi Arabia, America and Russia are all supporting the groups of their choice for their own benefit. But the common people of Yemen are getting punished for these proxies. Today, this is the situation that 20% Yemeni people do not get 2 meals a day. Millions of people have become homeless. Millions of youths have no future. Now Yemen is the home of the dirty politics of these proxy countries. That's why I mentioned leadership again and again in my videos. The fate of that country changes which gets good leadership. Singapore, China, India, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Oman are great examples of this. Yemen has reached to a place from where it seems very difficult to improve, and right now the heat of war between Israel and Iran is going to reach Yemen also, and it seems as if Yemen is going to join another big war soon. We made this video a few days ago on this topic, and you will get its link at the end of the video. See you in the next video. Till then, take care. Allah.